In the mangrove jungles of the Sundarbans, where India meets the Bay of Bengal, the first rays of sunlight were breaking through the dense foliage, coloring the swampy land a golden green. A light mist drifted over the water, and the air was saturated with the salty smell of the sea and the cries of birds. Here, among the twisted mangrove roots and narrow channels, a tigress named Rani led her tiger cub, a 3-month-old baby named Shankar, through the thickets. Rani was an accomplished hunter, one of the queens of Bengal tigers known for her strength and stealth. Her golden fur with black stripes blended with the shadows of the jungle, and her eyes burned with amber fire. She had left her territory for a time to teach Shankar the art of survival. The tiger cub, though still small, was already showing his temper, his paws stomping impatiently on the wet ground, and his curious eyes watching every rustle in the thicket. Every morning Rani led Shankar along the mangrove trails, teaching him to sneak silently, to listen to the sounds of the forest, and to smell the prey. This day they set out at dawn, when the sun barely illuminated the dark waters of the channel. The tigress moved slowly, her muscles tense under her fur, and Shankar was distracted every now and then by chasing butterflies or slapping his paws on puddles. Rani growled patiently, reminding him to focus, but the tiger cub was too young to hold his attention for long. Soon they came to the edge of a mangrove, where the ground was becoming soft and muddy. Here, among the roots and reeds, Shankar noticed a dark crevice in the ground, the entrance to an abandoned hole, perhaps left by a boar or other animal. His curiosity got the better of him and he crawled closer, sniffed the damp soil and tried to look inside. Suddenly the muddy soil beneath him crumbled, and the tiger cub slipped into a deep hole with a shrill squeal. Rani instantly turned around at the scream. Her heart raced as she saw Shankar disappear into the dark hole. Running to the edge of the pit, she looked down. The tiger cub was floundering below, its small paws slipping on the slippery walls. The pit was deep, with steep muddy walls, and even for an adult tigress it would be almost impossible to get out. Rani growled, her voice echoing through the jungle, but all her attempts to reach the cub ended with her nearly sliding down. Shankar, frightened and tired, clawed at the walls of the pit, but his claws only raked the dirt that crumbled on him. His cries grew fainter and fainter as his strength left his small body. Rani thrashed around the pit, her eyes filled with despair. She lay down on the edge, trying to reach the cub, and then jumped up, growling with impotence. Finally, realizing that she could not cope on her own, the tigress made a decision. She must find help. Leaving Shankar, whose faint cries were still coming from the hole, Rani dashed through the mangroves to the wide path where the boats of the locals and rangers sometimes appeared. Her powerful paws kneaded the dirt, and her heart beat in a rhythm of hope. Soon she heard the rumble of an engine, and saw a small boat slowly floating down the channel. On board was a group of tourists, accompanied by Anushka, a young female ranger who worked in the Sundarban reserve. Anushka was known for her love for tigers. She grew up in a village on the edge of the reserve, and had dreamed of protecting these majestic animals since childhood. Her team was leading tourists through the channels, talking about the biodiversity of the Sundarbans and the lives of Bengal tigers. When Rani suddenly jumped ashore and got in the way of the boat, the tourists gasped in fear. But Anushka, noticing the tigress' tense but non-threatening posture, realized that something was wrong. "Don't be afraid," she said to the tourists, raising her hand. "She's not going to attack. She is asking for help." Rani looked straight at Anushka, her eyes full of concern, as if pleading. The tigress gave a low, hoarse growl and took a step forward, lightly touching the water with her paw. The tourists watched breathlessly as Anushka carefully stepped off the boat and onto the shore. She slowly approached Rani, trying not to provoke her. Suddenly the tigress turned and ran towards the jungle, looking back as if inviting her to follow. Anushka remembered a story she had heard from the older rangers. 3 years ago, during a major flood, she had helped rescue a tigress trapped by poachers. At that time she freed her from the net and treated a wound on her shoulder. Noticing the old scar on Rani's shoulder, Anushka gasped, "It's you. I remember you." Rani, as if recognizing Anushka, nudged her head lightly, making a soft rumbling sound. Anushka turned towards the tourists. "She trusts me. Something has happened and we need to go after her." A few tourists, despite their fear, decided to join while the rest stayed in the boat. Anushka, taking her backpack with tools, followed Rani through the thicket. The trail was difficult. Mangrove roots clung to their feet, and the humid air made breathing difficult. After 1.5 kilometers, they heard the faint, barely audible cries of a tiger cub. Rani quickened her pace, and Anushka and the hikers followed her. When they reached the pit, they saw Shankar lying at the bottom. His fur was covered with mud, and his breathing was heavy and labored. Rani stood at the edge, growling with concern. Anushka quickly assessed the situation. The hole was too deep to jump, and the walls were too slippery. "We'll need rope and something to pull him out," she said, digging into her backpack. She found a sturdy rope and a fishing net that was sometimes used to clear debris from the channels. The tourists helped tie the net to the rope, creating an improvised cradle. Anushka carefully lowered the net into the hole, being careful not to scare Shankar. The tiger cub, seeing his mother growling to calm him, slowly crawled up to the net. Anushka patiently guided him, using a soft voice and gestures. "Come on, baby. You can do it," she whispered. After a few tense minutes, Shankar, gathering his last strength, climbed into the net. The tourist standing at the edge of the hole began to slowly pull the rope. The net creaked as it clung to the roots, but everyone worked harmoniously. Rani walked in circles, her eyes following every movement. Finally, the net rose to the edge of the pit, and Anushka carefully pulled the tiger cub to the ground. Rani immediately rushed to Shankar, hugging him with her powerful body and licking the dirt from his fur. Her growl, previously full of alarm, became soft, filled with love. Shankar, still weak, clung to his mother, making a soft, purring sound. The tourist watching this could not hold back their tears. One of them, a young boy named Rahul, took out some dried fish from his backpack, which he had taken for a snack, and offered it to Anushka. "It's not meat, but it might help," he said. Anushka carefully placed the fish closer to the tigers. Rani, smelling the food, was wary at first, but then started eating, allowing Shankar to join in. The hungry tigers greedily devoured the treat, their strength gradually returning. Shankar, having gained energy, began to play, nibbling on his mother's tail, while Rani patiently allowed him to frolic. The sun rose higher, flooding the mangrove jungle with warm light. The silhouettes of a tigress and a tiger cub stood out against the green thickets, like symbols of life and survival. The tourists took out their cameras, cautiously capturing the moment, and Anushka watched Rani and Shankar with a smile. She remembered how she had saved Rani years ago, and now fate had brought them together again. Rani looked at Anushka, her eyes as if saying thank you. Shankar, as if imitating his mother, let out a faint growl as he looked at the human. Anushka waved goodbye and the tourists shouted, "See you later, Rani. Take care of your babe." The tigress and cubs slowly disappeared into the bush, their striped backs flashing among the mangroves. The jungle was filled with the sounds of birds and splashing water again, as if blessing their path. Anushka returned to the boat, her heart full of joy from the mission accomplished. The tourists discussed what they had seen, their faces glowing with delight. The story of rescue, trust, and the connection between man and nature will remain in the hearts of everyone who witnessed this day in the Sundarbans. And perhaps somewhere deep in the jungle, Rani and Shankar will continue their survival lessons, carrying within them a spark of gratitude to the people who came to their aid. Friends, thank you for taking the time to read this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us and learn more about wildlife and its wonders.